The Ukraine-Russia War by Nevaeh Black. Contents. Introduction, historical context, the start of the war, the political and economic conditions of Ukraine, conclusions, and bibliography. Introduction. The Ukraine-Russian War, beginning in March of 2014, has caused tremendous debates and discourse over the current state of Ukraine. Historically, Ukraine has faced tyranny and imperialism against Russia, inflicting economic, political, and social turmoil since its independence. However, the introduction of the Russian-Ukrainian War and the events that follow may determine this country's independence. Historical context. Between the 14th and 18th centuries, various regions of Ukraine were divided among European countries. These countries included Lithuania, Poland, and Russia. By the 18th century, Russia's power grew due to events like World War I and the Russian Revolution in 1917, causing the Ukraine to fall against Russian tyranny and become a republic of the Soviet Union. As Russia's political control grew over Ukraine, the country began to face further problems at the hand of Russian Soviet Union leader Joseph Stalin, causing the Holodomor famine in Ukraine. In addition, further turmoil was inflicted due to Axis powers, which resulted in the extension of borders into western regions of Ukraine, as well as the country being used as the main defensive line between the West and Soviets during the Cold War. However, the fall of the Soviet Union led to Ukraine gaining independence in 1991, but events like the Chernobyl accidents created issues in the country's later attempts to implement reforms to improve its economy and political structure, creating several political disputes as well as socio-cultural and regional divides. The key players. The key players involved in the start of Ukraine-Russian war involved Viktor Yanukovych, the Euromaidan protesters, and Vladimir Putin. Yanukovych, the previous president of Ukraine prior to the war, played a key role in the inception of this war. In addition, Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, initiated what is now a 10-year war. The Euromaidan protesters, involved in a number of large-scale protests in response to Yanukovych's decisions that are discussed later in the following slide. Nonetheless, these protests were intense, resulting in what is known as the Ukraine Revolution, that killed and injured protesters. In the quote below, it showcases the protesters' motivations, stating, "Protesters opposed what they saw as widespread government corruption and abuse of power, the influence of Russia and oligarchs, police brutality, human rights violations, and repressive anti-protest laws. A large barricade protest camp occupied Independence Square in central Kyiv throughout the Maidan uprising." The start of the Ukraine war. November 2013, pro-Russian and Ukrainian President Yanukovych meets with Russian President Putin about partnership between Ukraine and Russia. November 2013, Yanukovych decided not to sign an association agreement with the European Union, causing disruption. This event causes a series of Euromaidan protests, as we discussed before, and government changes. February 2014, the Ukraine parliament impeaches Yanukovych, causing him to flee the country. March 2014, President Putin signs a law causing the takeover of Crimea, Ukraine, beginning what is known as the Ukraine-Russian War that has taken place for the last 10 years. As you can see on the right of this slide, there is a map illustrating Crimea, the region that was invaded by the Russians, as well as varying areas during 2014 that involved pro-Russian protests, armed rebellions, and the region's state administration building's location. The political and economic condition of Ukraine. Political. Since the war began in 2014, Ukraine has introduced a number of laws and reforms to increase security defenses and uncover corruption within their government. This includes the 2015 National Security and Military Doctrine, as well as investigations to find possible internal connection to Russia and possible war profiteering. Economic. First, a 30% loss of gross domestic product following a Russian invasion in 2022. This currently is the largest economic loss the country has faced since its independence in 1991. In addition, large-scale emigration has caused further issues within the Ukraine economy and access to skilled worker. This immigration has caused around 6 million Ukrainians to be forced to flee to other surrounding European countries accepting immigrants. Nonetheless, Ukraine has managed to combat these and other economic issues that have risen, enacting government policies that reduce income taxes, VATs on imports, and taxes on fuel. Furthermore, these policies have helped the country to slow inflation while supporting Ukraine's businesses. Conclusions. The war between Ukraine and Russia has exacerbated the previous conflicts that the country held, but nonetheless, this marks a trivial period for Ukraine and its ability to maintain independence against Russia's tyranny. It's important to factor in how much of this is affecting the people of Ukraine, having as many as 11,000 civilian casualties and 80,000 soldiers dead. I hope this presentation has provided further insight on the significance of the events that have continued to take place in Ukraine. This is my bibliography. And to end this presentation, I've attached an image of a Ukrainian protester holding a sign advocating an end to this war. Thank you for listening.